Your instructor is one of the finest pilots this program has ever produced.
Your reputation precedes you.
I have to admit, I wasn't expecting an invitation back.
It took a while, but it's finally here. Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to the legendary film starring Tom Cruise. After 36 years, Cruise is back as Pete Maverick Mitchell, the character that made him famous. This time, he'll train a new batch of Top Gun pilots for a tough mission and meet the son of his late friend Nick Goose Bradshaw. For director Joseph Kosinski, this film could only be made if they found the right story.
The first film was a rite of passage story for Maverick, and I felt like this film also needed to be a rite of passage story. The kind of fundamental relationship in our film is between Maverick and Rooster, played by Miles Teller, who is Goose's son. And to me, the reuniting or reconciliation of these two characters really form the emotional spine of this story.
The film focuses on the camaraderie of this kind of experience more than combat. It's really about, you know, the teamwork, the families, the relationships.
You should be at least a 2-star admiral by now. Yet here you are, captain. Why is that?
It's one of life's mysteries, sir.
I think any time that you are kind of stepping into a franchise or kind of carrying the torch and continuing the legacy of something that made such an impact and continues to make an impact, not just cinematically, but also culturally, to be able to kind of re-energize it in a way and continue that story has been a really incredible journey for me.
Just being asked to be a part of this is kind of a feather in one's cap, and so I was just thrilled to be asked, honestly.
When I approached Tom in 2017 with kind of my take on the movie, I knew there were two requirements. One, the story had to be deeply emotional, and number two, the film had to be shot practically, and that's what we're doing.
They hadn't really told us about the F-18, like if it was confirmed or not. So we thought we were just kind of, for the first month or so, flying to acclimate for just being in the cockpit.
When you get in an F-18, there's nothing like it. The speed that you go, it also feels effortless. You are hopping over mountains in a split second. You have absolute control. You can fly 10 feet off the ground and shoot 40,000 feet up in the air in a matter of a couple seconds. And so it's adrenaline and this thrill like you've never, ever felt.
When you're in the jet, you look out and it's like, oh, this is how fast we're going, until we start doing the dogfighting. It's like, and that's when you really feel the real power.
I watch aerial footage now with a completely different eye, because being in the plane and seeing how those things work is like nothing else.
The epic action spectacle Top Gun Maverick has just hit the big screen. Top Gun and its sequel Top Gun Maverick are not the only movies in which Tom Cruise plays a pilot. Actually, to say that he plays a pilot is maybe not quite right in Tom's case, as the star is an accomplished aviator in real life. The World War II P-51 Mustang that can be seen in Top Gun Maverick is the actor's own plane, and he did as much of his own flying as possible in the movie. A film in which Cruise did all of his own flying, though, is the 2017 crime comedy American Made, a quirky yet excellent, non-typical Tom Cruise movie, based on the life story of Barry Seal, an American pilot who became a drug runner for the CIA in the 1980s. Something that would be unthinkable in today's world.
Sometimes, time has to go by to tell these stories, like especially to tell them the way we tell it with American Made, where we're giving it some humor, or a lot of humor. Like, it kind of needs to, once the 80s are comfortably far enough away that we can sort of look at it and laugh at ourselves. I think we just can't believe that these people got away with what they got away with. You know, it's I mean, that's the thing about the 80s. It's why Tom Cruise and I were so attracted to bringing this pilot to the screen, was that because Tom and I are both pilots, we're like, wow, the kind of flying that Barry Seal was doing in the 80s, you just can't do today. It's kind of like a Western. It's you know, it's instead of horses, they're airplanes, and instead of it dying out in, you know, the 19th century, it ended in the 1980s. Because today with technology, you know, people could not get away with what Barry Seal got away with. Pablo Escobar couldn't get away with what he got away with. It's just, those days are over. That's the Wild West is finally done.
The film has several spectacular action scenes, for which Cruise and Lyman had to come up with some unorthodox, non-Hollywood style solutions. In fact, they weren't unlike the real-life situations that Tom was portraying.
If somebody says it can't work or can't happen, you know, that gets my juices really flowing, and American Made provided, you know, a ton of those opportunities. I mean, first of all, Barry Seal, the character Tom Cruise is portraying, was constantly sort of facing challenges that seemed impossible, you know, and getting in and out of these outrageous airstrips and running away from the DEA and you know, doing these chase sequences with airplanes. But even just the act of making the film, and Tom and I saying, like, when we told the producers we wanted to go to this remote airstrip that was 3 hours from the closest road to shoot some of the flying, and we'd have to live there in tents. Sometimes I'm amazed I get away with it. I can't believe that they actually let Tom and I go do that.
Lyman and Cruise worked together before on the equally original movie Edge of Tomorrow, in which Tom also plays a different character from his usual action hero persona.
I love people having expectations and then surprising them. It's why, you know, I think part of the fun of Edge of Tomorrow is you have an expectation of who Tom Cruise is going to be, and then we just surprise you, and it's not at all the film you thought you were going to see, because you sort of expect a certain film with Tom Cruise. And same thing with American Made. You know, you sort of have expectations. Tom Cruise in airplanes, you know, comes with baggage. You're thinking of Top Gun and thinking of, you know, Mission Impossible, and it's like, you know, American Made's a very different movie, plays a very different character. So I actually love having people coming in with expectations and then flipping them.
Though some of the situations depicted in the film actually happened, the real Barry Seal didn't look like Tom Cruise at all. He was a heavyset guy who was nicknamed El Gordo, which means the fat one in Spanish. Apart from that, American Made is as remarkable as the main character's life story, so if you haven't seen it yet, we highly recommend it. 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout is the 6th movie in the popular franchise, following IMF agent Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, who's once again chasing and fighting international bad guys against impossible odds. The stunts were coordinated by one of the biggest names in the business, Wade Eastwood. On his resume, you'll find a wide variety of large-budget movie projects. As a stunt coordinator, Wade has worked very closely with Tom Cruise several times. They joined forces on The Mummy, Jack Reacher Never Go Back, and Edge of Tomorrow, as well as in the previous Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation. Eastwood knows that Cruise likes to keep things as real as possible.
You can tell when something's been cheated, and the one thing that Tom definitely does not want to do is cheat an audience. He has fun making movies, and making movies is about being on cool locations and the logistical nightmares that you get, but then the reward that you get at the end of it. Both with character and story, you know, as well as the end result in the film. So I think it's super important for a movie like Mission and Tom that we keep it real.
We all know that Tom Cruise loves to do all his stunts himself, and to make sure that everything goes well when performing these stunts, you need an absolute professional to help you with every conceivable movement. That's exactly why Wade Eastwood was on board the project.
Safety is a big thing for Tom. It's a massive thing, obviously, for me. My responsibility is him and everyone else and all my team. But Tom, being such an athlete, is aware of what it takes to do what he's about to do. He trusts in myself and my team on the action front, and we always make sure that we can give a spectacle of action, but keep it very safe, not just for the performers and for Tom, but all those around. And that's just through experience and doing it a lot. So I think Tom and I work really well together on that. There's a process, a very disciplined process from my side. And from Tom's side, he wants to he trusts in what we do, and he applies it, and he does it in a very professional manner.
And according to Wade, with the stunts in Mission Impossible Fallout, they really outdid themselves.
On this mission, it started off with 5 big pieces of action that were going to be amazing, and that turned into 10 big pieces of action and 5 smaller pieces of action, and it just keeps growing. So I think we're topping all other missions with this one purely based on we have so much stuff in it. There's not one big sequence that we're going to remember. There's so many big sequences in this movie.
Having seen the film, Wade did an absolutely top-notch job because the action looks completely spectacular and totally convincing. So if you haven't seen it yet, check out Mission Impossible Fallout as soon as you can. Later on in this exclusive Tom Cruise episode, all about the iconic star and his popular movies, we visit the very special San Diego premiere of Top Gun Maverick. But first, more on the career of this action legend. Hollywood icon Tom Cruise developed a love of acting from an early age and landed his first speaking role in 1981's Taps. The rising star's big breakthrough came 2 years later with the teen comedy Risky Business, but young Cruise already seemed to have his whole career mapped out.
All the scripts were coming in, it was Risky Business, and I thought, I have to protect my talent here because I know I want to grow, I have to develop, and I don't want to burn out, and all of a sudden, 7 years from now, I don't have the opportunities anymore.
Thankfully, Tom's next choices turned out to be excellent, like the drama Rain Man opposite Dustin Hoffman, A Few Good Men together with Jack Nicholson, or the now classic blockbuster Top Gun.
It's better than I expected. It was fantastic.
But it was the year 2000 when the second installment of the now widely known Mission Impossible franchise saw its release. The film marked the real beginning of Tom Cruise evolving from an actor who occasionally starred in thrillers into a full-blown action hero. Also, the John Woo flick itself set a new standard for film stunts, which of course are mostly done by Tom himself.
I love what I do. I love showing up on the set and working with the writers and the directors and the other actors. And there's a thrill and an exhilaration of working, an 18-hour day and knowing you've done good work and you feel very proud of yourself for that. I want to make great films. That's what I'm interested in.
Yes, Cruise is notorious for his hard work on set. The actor goes to great lengths to get the perfect shot. He'd already shown in the original Top Gun movie, in Days of Thunder, and in the first Mission Impossible, which was directed by Brian De Palma, that he isn't afraid to go all the way and even get hurt.
I kept falling and smacking my head on the floor. Just couldn't balance it. Physically, I just couldn't do it. After we'd spent probably all of the morning, we went into a late lunch to try to get this shot. And I'll never forget, I'm telling you, I dropped down, and I'm just hanging there and hanging. I don't want to give it away, but I'm hanging there and hanging there and hanging there. And it worked. And Brian just left me hanging there just to get we had 3 different cameras going. And finally he said, okay, cut. And I just went, whew, it was a great feeling though when you got it, and Brian came over and gave me a hug and said, all right, man, let's go, Mission Impossible, I said it's going to cost X amount of dollars, and it cost X amount of dollars, and they just leave me alone and let me deliver them the picture. And I think that's the good thing about it, that I've earned that kind of, that privilege, and I do feel it to be a privilege.
Every time Tom takes on a new role in an action movie, it's the actor's goal to set the bar higher and higher for the genre. Take the helicopter scene in Mission Impossible Fallout. It could easily have been filmed in a studio or with a professional stunt double, but like we said, Tom Cruise isn't afraid to put in hard work. So he did the most obvious thing, learned to fly a helicopter, and risked his life doing the shot himself. But of course that wasn't enough. Ever heard of a high-altitude low-opening jump? Called a halo jump for short. It's an extremely dangerous skydive from an airplane, which requires the jumper to wear a special suit and helmet just to breathe. Cruise, of course, decided he should be the first actor to do one on camera. Leaping from a height of over 25,000 feet, the star naturally nailed it.
It's the most practical action I think ever shot in any film in the history of films, actually. When we add it up, the most practical. We were pushing it. We didn't really kind of think about it until we looked at the movie and thought, what? Look at how many things we've done.
And there are many more crazy stunts that Tom Cruise has pulled off. Earlier, we saw the actor flying a helicopter dangerously low and jumping from a plane dangerously high. But get ready, folks, those are only the tip of the iceberg. Tom did another crazy thing in the opening scene of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation when his character needs to stop a cargo plane from taking off. He fails to do so, and the plane is speeding up the runway. So what does he do? He jumps on the outside of the plane and tries to hang on as it flies away. All for real.
Sometimes some of these things that I'm doing, I'll train for years. There's stuff when you see Mission that I trained for a couple of years for a specific sequence. So we just do everything we can to make it as, it is a stunt, there's danger involved, a lot of danger sometimes, but we do the best we can.
And these are only some examples of stunts the actor's done for the franchise. We haven't even mentioned the cliff climbing at Utah's Dead Horse Point, the most insane motorcycle chases you'll ever see, underwater scenes where Tom learned to hold his breath for over 6 minutes, and climbing the Burj Khalifa for real.
He kind of set a tone and a standard for what this movie is, and his work ethic is unlike anything I've ever seen. I work hard as well, and it was tough to keep up with.
But it isn't only in the Mission Impossible and Top Gun movies that Cruise is willing to go to insane lengths. For the sci-fi spectacle Edge of Tomorrow, the actors had to wear real armored suits, which made it very difficult to move.
I wanted the characters to be real, I wanted the world to be real, I wanted the suits of armor to be real. Seemed like a good idea at the beginning. Then once we had built the suits and we started working with them, I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst idea ever. They're so heavy, they're so cumbersome, they slow everything down, the actors are in pain. I mean, Tom would never show that, but everybody else showed it.
I cried the first time I put the suit on because I knew that it was going to be months of this, and I was so overwhelmed by how heavy it was, and so Tom just tried to make me laugh, so called me a wuss.
The 2017 blockbuster The Mummy featured plenty of special effects and explosions, but for this film, Tom also did an epic weightless scene in a plane. It had to be shot 64 times over 2 days, with the crew all vomiting in between takes. The actor, on the other hand, didn't break a sweat. Tom Cruise has been the established action star of Hollywood for over 20 years now and shows no signs of slowing down. It doesn't matter if he's doing crazy fight scenes or pulling 8 Gs in a fighter jet for Top Gun Maverick. It's only a small sign of what he's capable of. Tom Cruise comes second to no one in his commitment and dedication.
Really, I work 7 days a week. I'm usually shooting a film while I'm in post-production on a movie, and then I'm prepping 1 or 2 films, that I'll do back to back. And so I do take care of myself, but, I don't sleep much, and I just work, and I'm constantly studying and learning new things. I think maybe that has a lot to do with it also. And I'm very passionate about what I do, and I feel privileged to be able to do what I do.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
We have to keep reminding ourselves that after more than 30 years, the follow-up to the classic action drama Top Gun is finally here, Top Gun Maverick.
This is finally the global premiere for Top Gun Maverick.
36 years later, and here we are. It's surreal.
We are on a carrier in San Diego. We are floating in the ocean right now. There is a helicopter at the end of this thing that Tom Cruise landed on. There are probably 1,000 people on this thing. This is crazy. I don't know what's happening right now.
Oh, but we do. The cast and crew recently came together at the amazing USS Midway Museum in San Diego for the movie's big premiere. However, what we do need to know from them is what took so long for the sequel.
I was finally like, this is now or never. And look, I was always there. Everywhere I traveled around the world, they wanted a sequel. And it was just never right. It's just the story wasn't right, but I'd lay there in bed and I'm constantly thinking about stories, and I was like, okay, what if, how? And I was waiting for technology to be able to catch up to some of the things that I wanted to accomplish, and it just came together.
What do we have here? God, here I thought we were special.
Fellas, this here's Bagman.
Hangman.
Whatever.
What the hell kind of mission is this?
Everyone here is the best there is. Who the hell are they gonna get to teach us?
Some familiar faces are back, but new recruits also joined the crew. And since there's no points for second place, we wanted to know what the competition was like among the new cast members.
Listen, competition is a fundamental part of Top Gun. So, you know, going through the training, they were competing who could pull the most G's, you know, and that's what you want. That builds that kind of friendship that you want, and it shows on screen.
I mean, there was a lot of competition on this movie. That's the theme of the movie, and that was the theme in front of the camera and behind the camera. But I'll say this group of actors is so exceptional. And in this one, everything we put on, living on the bases together, the transition in Sprinter vans and being on the carrier and being in San Diego again, it's so special. It's like, it's a ride of a lifetime for us, but even more so for the audience.
Amongst the new recruits is Miles Teller, who portrays Rooster, the son of Goose from the original movie. Maverick was partly responsible for Goose's death in combat. So in the sequel, the older pilot will face the errors of his past by training his late friend's son.
I really love the character, and I think it's a really beautiful relationship between Rooster and Maverick. And I mean, look, the first time Rooster walks on screen, people are projecting everything that happened to Goose in the first one. So it was some big shoes to fill, and I'm just glad I didn't have to, try and recreate Goose by any means. I just love the character that they wrote for me.
Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kosinski, AKA Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
You heard Maverick, we need to manage our expectations. So, what can we expect from a sequel that was 36 years in the making?
It's really very moving, the journey that Maverick goes on in this film, which may surprise some audiences, I think. I've had a lot of people who have seen it tell me they were crying when they came, they were laughing, they were crying, they were cheering. It's a poignant story. So hopefully fans will enjoy that.
I think part of it is the wait, the long wait between these things. I think the movie doesn't take place the day after the first one ended. It takes place in real time, and part of that is people grow up, and people get sick, and people die, and relationships change, and responsibilities change. And the movie addresses those themes head on. It's about how you make different decisions when you're 25 than you do when you're in your 50s, and how words like duty and service and responsibility and friendship and loyalty, all of those things mean something different. So I think that, we've made a movie that touches on a lot of really universal themes.
It's not just flying planes. I mean, they're risking their lives and to protect their country. And, there's camaraderie and love and friendship and romance. And, you need all of it.
Get ready for plenty of impressive adrenaline-fueled action scenes as Top Gun Maverick has just landed on the big screen.
No turning back now.
Come on! Jeez!
Having any fun yet?
Thank you for watching this special Tom Cruise episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to watch Top Gun